Hey guys, while looking for obscure vehicles to cover in my previous videos, I've come across a lot of obscure and strange cars and trucks that were sold only in Brazil, and they were all very interesting to me. So today, I'll be going over 10 obscure Brazil exclusive cars that you might not have heard about. Also, this is my first video in which I talk about non-American cars, so let me know if you guys want me to make videos on more cars from other parts of the world, or if you would prefer that I stay with American cars. With all of that being said, let's get on to the video. Bianco S. The Bianco S was a sports car that was first unveiled at the 1976 Sao Paulo International Motor Show and was produced until 1979. It was created by Tony Bianco and was built on the chassis of the Volkswagen Beetle, similar to many kit cars of the time. For context, due to import restrictions in Brazil, there were very few sports cars in the country. This led to a small amount of manufacturers making sports cars based on VW Beetle running gear to help keep costs down, while also introducing some new sports cars into the scene. Some features the Bianco S had were a fiberglass body and some steel reinforcements to the back and front for safety. It was rear-engined and had the 1.6-liter Volkswagen Flat 4 from the Beetle that made about 64 horsepower, and this power was sent to the rear wheels via a 4-speed manual transmission. Although this doesn't seem like a lot of power, it was still just enough for the Bianco S to be a fun sports car to drive. M422T. The M422T was a sports sedan that was produced from 1997 to 1999 by Megastar and was developed with help from Lotus. This was designed to be a true sports sedan that aimed to rival other sedans like the BMW M5 and Mercedes-Benz E55 AMG. This car used a lot of Lotus weight-saving techniques to keep the car as light as possible, removing things like ABS and airbags, although it had a galvanized steel chassis and used various off-the-shelf parts in its construction. Despite these factors, it still weighed almost 3,527 pounds, which was close to that of its competitors of the time. It originally used a Lotus 2.2-liter turbocharged straight 4, which made 264 horsepower and 271 pound-foot of torque. Lotus would later allow it to use the V8 from its Esprit sports car. The only transmission option was a 5-speed manual. It also had a lot of downsides though, with some of those being its questionable styling, lack of safety features, quality control problems, and other things. Although the company had high hopes for this project, it eventually fell through in 1999 when Megastar went bankrupt. It is believed that around 15 M422Ts were built in total. This is a very rare and obscure car for sure. Volkswagen SP2. The Volkswagen SP2 was a Brazilian sports car that was produced from 1972 to 1975. This car had a rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout and was only available with a 4-speed manual with a reverse gear. The only engine option was a 1.7-liter air-cooled VW Boxer 4 engine, which made about 64 horsepower and 89 pound-foot of torque. This car was widely praised at the time for being one of the best-looking Volkswagen vehicles. Although it was seen as a very nice-looking car, sales were still pretty slow. When production ended, the total amount made was around 10,205. These are seen as very sought-after collector's cars today, and it will cost you a larger amount of money to get one than with most other classic VWs. Trawler T4. The Trawler T4 is an off-road vehicle that was produced from 2007 to 2021. It had a Jeep-like design as well as a fiberglass body with a steel chassis. This car was only available in two-door form as well as 4 or rear-wheel drive. It existed in two forms, hardtop or canvas roof, both of which were removable. The transmission was a 5-speed manual. There were 3 engine options, with all of them being different turbo diesel 5-cylinders. Another interesting fact about this car is that it is actually owned by Ford of Brazil, who ended production of the Trawler T4 in 2021. Ford F1000. The F1000 is a pickup truck lineup that was produced by Ford of Brazil from 1979 to 1998. The F1000 was essentially Brazil's F250 and was available in two-door regular cab and two-door super cab forms. It was also available in both rear and four-wheel drive. The transmission options were 4 and 5-speed manuals. These trucks sat between the F100 and F4000 in Ford of Brazil's lineup. The engine options available for the F1000 were a 2.3-liter four-cylinder, a 3.4-liter inline-six, and a 272 cubic inch V8. This is a pretty obscure truck that I actually didn't know existed prior to researching for this video. Puma GTB. The Puma GTB was a sports car that was built with components from the Brazilian Chevrolet Opala. It was built from 1973 to 1984 and was built in 4 different series over its 11-year production run, with those being S1, S2, S3, and S4, although the best sellers were the Series 1 and 2 models. All were powered by a 4.1-liter Chevrolet 266 inline-six, which made 168 horsepower and 268 pound-foot of torque. Power was sent to the rear wheels via a 4-speed manual transmission. Like the previously mentioned M422T, production of this car ended due to the company going bankrupt. Overall, a pretty interesting sports car. Santa Matilde SM41. The SM41 is a Brazilian sedan-styled sports car that was produced by Santa Matilde from 1977 to 1997. It was available in coupe and cabriolet forms. Although there was a lot of different versions of the Santa Matilde SM41 over its long production of 2 decades, they all had very similar layouts and features. The body is made out of fiberglass with polyester reinforcements. There were 2 engines that it used over its many versions, with those being a 4.1-liter inline-six that made 171 horsepower and a 2.5-liter turbocharged inline-four that made 140 horsepower. Both of these engines came from the previously mentioned Chevrolet Opala. It was seen as one of Brazil's most futuristic cars at the time, with a lot of new features. There is not much information available online for this car, but from what I could find, it was a popular, well-liked sports car. Farus ML-929. The Farus car company was created by father and son Alfio and Giuseppe Russo. Together, they created multiple cars under the Farus brand name, with one of these being the ML-929. The ML-929 was a sports car that was produced from 1979 to 1990 and was a very advanced vehicle for its time. Some of the advanced features it had for the time were a mid-mounted engine, all-wheel disc brakes, a McPherson strut suspension, and a steel backbone chassis. It was rear-wheel drive and had a 4-speed manual transmission. It was available in coupe and cabriolet forms. This car used a multitude of engines during its production run, using engines from brands like Chrysler, Fiat, Volkswagen, and Chevrolet. Interestingly, this car almost had an export version created to be shipped to the US and was even shown at the 1987 New York Auto Show, where it got over 1,500 reservations. However, it was very expensive to develop this export version, and it never materialized. I think this might just be the closest to being sold in the United States out of all of the cars on this list. Volkswagen Gol GTI. Nope, that isn't a typo. Volkswagen actually did sell a car in South America called the Gol, and it was actually the best-selling car in all of Brazil for 27 years from 1987 to 2014. We aren't talking about the standard Gol today, but the hot hatch GTI model. The Gol GTI was sold in its first generation from 1984 to 1989. Like most hot hatches, it was front-wheel drive, and it had a 2.0-liter inline-four that made about 121 horsepower. It was able to get up to a pretty good top speed of about 115 miles per hour. The transmission was a 5-speed manual, and this car was only available in the 2-door body style. One interesting piece of information I found on this car is that it was actually the first Brazilian car to feature electronic fuel injection. I really like this one since I am a fan of hot hatches. Chevrolet Veraneio. The Chevrolet Veraneio is an SUV based on the Brazilian Chevrolet C-Series pickup. It was produced in 2 generations in Brazil and was a Chevy Suburban-like car with only a few differences. The first gen was equipped with multiple inline-6 engines and was rear-wheel drive. It also had a 3-speed manual transmission. The second generation Veraneio was rear-wheel drive, only used one i6 engine over its production run, and had a 4-speed manual transmission. I had not heard of this one before. It's a very interesting vehicle. And those are 10 obscure Brazilian cars for you guys. This was my first video talking about cars from other countries. I was wondering if I should do a series where I make a 10 obscure cars video for a bunch of different countries or not. Be sure to let me know in the comments how you guys feel about that. This was also my first 10 car video, so I might do more of those sometime soon. If you like my videos, please be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.